we could actually get started.
I see somebody named Nathan
Yeah,
Stanley.
that's our tech guy. That's who's zooming in with us.
Oh, okay.
He's in charge of the Zoom, so I think Nate, you've given him, you've got the controller, Dr. Schatz, so you can take it away.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen, get that up
Yep.
there so that we have that on there. Okay, well, it's good to be back with you guys again, Chris and Corey and Heather. It's been a while. So, but as you know, going into last fall, we were working on the governance policies and, had made a lot of edits and things. And so, we were kind of at a point where we had to wait until the strategic plan got more developed and then the results policies would get created. And so that's what we've done. And so what I wanted to do today was just kind of get us re-engaged with this and to make sure that if you had any questions that we could answer those for you. The whole idea here is there's a number of different things. This strategic plan has been recreated with the writing team and the team there that I worked with, and so it's changed from what it was from the previous one we did. I think it was 4, maybe even 5 years ago, and then the governance policies, of course, updated, edited, but then the results policies are aligned to the strategic plan. And the strategic plan is aligned to the governance policies. And so what we have is a vertical alignment now of governance policies and your strategic plan. The other thing I've been working on too, and continue to do that, and that'll get further developed here, is to refresh and revise the original report I did back, I believe it was in 22, on the facilities and kind of where are you at with facilities overall. Pulling all the different components together and then looking at kind of the future and what does that mean. And so that is still in progress. I also, when I was working with Dr. Fadley, if you remember last fall, when it comes to the superintendent's performance review process, so gave you an example of a fall and a spring type of an evaluation process. And now that Jason's in the role, these are the decisions you'll have to make as a board, is do you want to move forward with that process with Jason? The whole idea here for Jason is to get him up to speed on the governance policies, but then this results piece, right? Because there's really two things that you have. You have results policies, of which I believe we have 15. And I'll go through a little bit of that with you here today. And then you will have the operational expectations. And so what I did was I not only aligned your strategic plan to your governance policies, your results piece, but also I aligned the operational expectations. In other words, where you have results policies, you'll see the goals that they pertain to within the strategic plan, but you'll also see the operational expectation policies that results policy is aligned to. So what I'm hoping, and then working with Taylor, we would look at the different monitoring reports that you had been using and make sure that those become aligned, if in fact you move forward with everything that we've put together. So there's quite a bit here, and I think just to get us started, are there any overarching questions or anything I can do to, like, particularly Corey and Heather and Chris, kind of get you back up to speed here to where we were and kind of where we're at right now? Does anybody have any questions for me to start with?
Was this the first time that you guys have seen the newly developed
Strategic
plan? We haven't shared it with you guys. Or
It was in the,
did we put it in the board
Weekly.
update?
and I sent it out.
Oh, okay.
But not a discussion topic.
Okay.
Yeah. And what I would tell you is everything is still in edit form and in draft. Ultimately, I think the goal here is to get you to your June board meeting. And Jason and I have talked about this, that I would come out to Williston and that we would do that I could do an orientation of the governance and the strategic plan the governance policies with the board. And I'm not sure, Taylor and Jason, if you've tried to organize anything yet, but where I would come out and do about an hour, hour and a half, and maybe before that June board meeting, and then you have your June meeting, and approve your strategic plan and your governance policy, so that when the new year starts in July 1st, we'd now be in implementation phase. And I've told Jason that I would work with him and Taylor on that too, so that you can have a smooth beginning of the implementation of these documents and the new plan, so that as you get started, everything's in alignment. So
We talk about June 2nd, like at 4 o'clock, and do it for an hour, hour and a half, and then have our board meeting after that.
yeah,
So I'm gone and on vacation. I will not be here from the day after graduation to the 4th of June. So I'll be gone. So I
yeah.
won't be here for the first meeting of the month.
Well, the thing we could do there too, then Corey, is I could do a Zoom session with you if you'd like. We could do the board meeting where I do the workshop with the board, and then if you're gone, maybe we could set up just an hour where you and I could and we get Jason on there, of course, and just go through some things too with you, and would so something to consider anyways.
Yeah, from my perspective, after what we do today and accomplish, and then let's present it to the board, if there's no major changes by the board at that time, I'm comfortable with where we're at. So through the process and being able to read through everything, I'm not concerned at all about the implementation aspect of it.
Yeah,
And I'm not, June 2nd for me also, I have multiple commitments and I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to make the board meeting either, due to some family stuff.
okay. Okay, well, I mean, I'll let you guys kind of figure out what you'd like to do with that, but it would be good if and again, you've been on this process, and so you guys probably have a pretty good handle of where this is at. Chris, are you going to be at your last board meeting?
Yes.
Okay, well, it sounds like they're all bailing on you, so there won't be much of a going away party for you, huh?
I've only got 47 more days, Dr. Schatz.
Yeah,
46 and a half, actually. I mean, we're halfway through the day today.
yeah. So if we cut this down to an hour meeting, you can even knock off another hour, huh?
One other thing, Dr. Schatz, we do have a special meeting in June because we do have to canvass the vote.
Yeah,
So we do have an opportunity still there where we can probably tack on approval of these if there were any questions or concerns from board members
yeah.
prior to the end of the month.
Yeah, and one of the things that I would suggest that Jason do too is prior to your board meeting, for the other board members, is to make sure that, because here's what you would do is you would send this information to them, and if they, so that they had an opportunity to see it, but if any of them had any questions, to kind of help them with that before you get to the board meeting, so you don't end up with a board meeting with a whole bunch of questions. I doubt there will be, but I mean, you never know. And but you guys can work that out on how you want to do that so that people are prepared, right? I mean, this has been in the works for a long time. I don't think there's any surprises here. And actually, to be honest with you guys, I'm pretty excited for you. I think you got a good set of policies here and a really good strategic plan to work with, and the alignment. And I think moving forward, it's all going to start to really come together for you. This whole vertical alignment thing I talk about, and so I think you're ready to go, if you will. And Corey and Heather, when you get to July, and the new board gets seated, you're ready to go, and you won't have to be making things up as you go and getting them figured out. And so I think it's pretty exciting, actually. And all the time I've worked with you guys, I think this is I'm actually pretty excited for you. moving forward here. So,
We had a lot of input, right, Dr. Schatz? I mean, we had the authorities writing the strategic plan. We had Robert writing the part on extracurriculars. We had,
yeah,
the curriculum directors and principals writing the assessment pieces. I mean, we had everybody's expertise. So I think, yeah, it was a total team effort, but all the right people were on the team, so.
yeah. Okay, so just in general, Corey, I heard you say you've had a chance to kind of brief these things, and you have a pretty good understanding, pretty good handle of it. Any questions from you? You good to go?
I'm good to go.
Yeah, and then Heather, from your perspective, when you looked at things, did you feel comfortable with where things are at?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, and then Chris, how about you? Any observations on your part?
Self-admittedly, I've kind of only had an opportunity to skim the strategic plan. I haven't been able to read it as in-depth as I would like. I have gotten through the governance policies start to finish, and I do have some questions in some areas there if we're intending on reviewing each one of the documents today, or if we just want to dive into the questions in specific areas. I can certainly do that.
Let me do this, is I'll just do a quick overview of the strategic plan. I didn't intend to walk through everything point by point because that would take a long time. And so, Chris, I think, yeah, let's get to the questions piece, but let me do this first. Up on the screen, I put, the strategic plan overview. And as you can see here, you have these 4 different areas that I call the priority areas that have been identified. And then under each are the areas of focus that were developed into the strategic plan. And so you can see under academic engagement, here are the different items that were listed there. And you can see literacy, math, and science, co-curricular kind of make up that academic achievement piece. There's a section on special education in there this time around, and this whole expanded pre-K piece. If you go over to innovation, as we call it, this would be long-range planning, also aligning your technology efforts with these North Dakota standards that are set up for that. A piece about the hardware, software component to your school district with all the technology. And then as you go over to school culture climate, these engagement with communications, Paula and her team and the whole communications process that you now have going in Williston. And these are the kind of the plans that they're looking at moving forward. The Vitality program and the BAR program, moving those forward also and using those systems. And then out here, of course, the resource management. And so there's a component on facilities. The boundary development, you've preliminarily put your boundaries together now, as I understand it, and you'll be moving into phase 2, and that is, well, how do we actually do it and implement it? And so that's what this piece is about. Finance, working with Michael, developing some goals in the finance area, and then down here with Judy working with the human resources. And so these are all identified. So this makes up the component of the strategic plan. Now, are there other things that the district is engaged in? Well, this time around, and I'm going to move up into the plan here, that's what these foundational practices are. This is new. When I first started working with you folks way back when, we didn't have a really good, we were probably doing a lot of different things, but we didn't have a good arms around it, if you will, with regard to everything. And these things, some of these things, many of these things were in your original strategic plan, but they're things that you're ongoing and what I call foundational. In other words, these are just the things you do. And so these things now still have components in which the district is working on these things, but they're now the foundation to all of the work that you do in the district. So they're listed here and defined this time around. I got to tell you, there were a lot of things accomplished over the last several years when you really take a look at it. And so you should feel good about that. With all of the consolidation and other challenges you've had, there's been some real success stories there. So sometimes we need to focus more on those things. And so these things here are in your plan now, defined as that. And so when people say, well, gee, why isn't so and so in the strategic plan? Well, it's probably up here in the foundational practices. So hopefully that makes sense to you folks. Okay, so that's that part of the strategic plan. And then in here, you see where this says results. So this is the beginning of the results piece to it of the strategic plan. So after each goal in here, or a number of goals, it just depended on how I bundled it, you have a results piece. Well, that becomes what you call your results policies. Now, these are all in your governance document. And then here's that reference to the operational expectations, the reference to what goals this particular results pertains to. When I talk about results policies or the results piece, what will happen is throughout the year when you monitor results, Jason and his team will come up and looking at some of these measures that are listed here in the strategic plan. Those are the things that they would put together in a report, and there may be a few other items that come forward that would then be a results report to you to show and give you examples of how they're achieving the goals that are associated with that results policy. So this is where that alignment all comes in. Everything's aligned together. Okay, having said that, Chris, why don't we jump in and any questions you had, and I could go to the section or the area that you had a question in. And I should get the governance policies up in front of us. And let me get it right on my screen. Just give me 1 second here. I got my screen a little messed up. Hold on 1 second. All right, give me just, there we go. Now I got it. All right. Okay, Chris, what do you have for me?
The first two are just gonna be typographical in nature, so on page 4,
Yeah,
under the superintendent, where we've got that first circle, I assume that's just supposed to read admin.
hold on a second. My document got a little messed up here. Let me get in and do something different. Sorry about that. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second and get out of that and get my document straight. Okay, give me one more try here. I'm gonna, sorry about that. For some reason, things got a little messed up here. Let me give it one more shot here. Okay, now it's back for me. I'm sorry about that, you guys. Okay, Chris, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so on page 4, that first orange circle under superintendent, I'm
Yeah.
assuming that should just say admin.
Yeah. Let me get that shared screen up again to make sure I'm seeing what you're seeing. You're talking about this one right here? Right here, Chris?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, it's administration is what I put in there. Um, so the superintendent, okay, so what's their role, responsibility? It's the administration of the school district, so providing the school district leadership, the strategic focus, and those outcomes. And so basically, strategic plan and outcomes from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It just the typo, the
You have a
letters in
typo
the
in there, Dr.
circle.
Chung.
It says ADIMIN.
Oh, okay, there we go. I got it. Okay, good.
I was trying to figure out what you were referencing, Chris. Thank you.
The additional I.
Good
Yes.
catch. I put that in there. You just won a bonus prize. Jason's gonna give you a sweatshirt from the high school. So nice job. Okay,
The next one is on page 9
okay,
under the academic engagement. If you go to where it says co-curricular experiences, just a typo there.
yeah, I see it in there too. Here's what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna highlight it. I'll go back later and clean that up. So just let me do that. Okay,
Page 10 under the paragraph where it says meeting procedures.
okay,
So it says all meetings will be conducted in an orderly and business-like manner. That looks fine. And then it says the general order of business of the school board meeting.
okay, yeah.
It seems like there's something missing there unless I'm just kind of reading it.
Yeah,
Not
it is.
reading it right.
It's a misplaced sentence. All meetings will be conducted orderly and business-like manner. Adjustments may be made. So this should be actually out. It just is an extra piece that should have come out of there.
Yeah.
So I got that. Okay.
Right below that, rules governing the transaction of business, number 3 there, just a formatting issue of transaction of business. I think it just got entered there.
Yep. There we go. Got it.
Under the agenda on that same page, it says rotating third board meeting. Meeting should be member. Or the president, vice president, and rotating third board member.
Got it.
Same paragraph there, the last sentence, it says inclusion is at the discretion of the board president. I think our more standard practice, Corey, has been consensus of the agenda setting team. It's not exclusively the board president that's necessarily determining if an agenda item should be granted on the agenda. Would you concur with that, or?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, that's our practice has been, it's kind of the team that's setting the agenda.
Yeah, and well, maybe we'll get to it, but the committee structure typically, I believe it's I'll have to go and look at your committee structure here as we get further down. Usually at that committee meeting, there's a discussion about agenda too. So yeah, should I just take that sentence out?
We would either take it out or adjust it to like a majority of the majority vote of the agenda setting committee, something along those lines.
And then when we get to committees, let's take a look at that.
Okay.
I'm just gonna make that note and highlight it, and then I'll fix that one up. Okay, got it.
Under that same page, next paragraph, regular meeting agenda. It says the board shall follow the order of business set up by the agenda unless altered by the consent of the members' presence. I think that should just be present. Strike the S.
Got it.
The next page, page 11. So we've recently made an adjustment to the order of the board meeting agenda. Number 8, communicating with the public, has been moved up. Is it before monitoring school district operations, Taylor?
Let me look. Yes, it's before. So right now we have it as call to order, adopt agenda, showcasing schools, communicating with the public, and then informational report. And then but we haven't been doing monitoring school district operations, so hasn't been in the agenda the last few months.
Sure.
So I'm gonna cut that from there, and it should go after showcasing, right?
Yes.
Two, so let me paste those back in. And then I'll go back in and get the formatting correct here, so just let me highlight it. Okay,
Page 12, where we talk about public participation at school board meetings. I think this is gonna have to be revamped in light of recent legislation that was passed. As an example, like paragraph 2, we say although there is no legal requirement that the public be given an opportunity to speak at board meetings, it is a legal requirement now that the public be given an opportunity to speak at board meetings.
yeah, and then what we could do, Chris, is I could look at where that's gonna be in Century Code and then reference that.
Yeah, and item 2 here, it says only items on the publish
Board agenda.
board agenda. I believe that's changing to the current board agenda, and the prior meeting board agenda is what they can comment on.
Correct. But I don't know if the law specifies how far back in an agenda they can go.
It does.
It does, do you know what it is?
Prior,
It's the
Any
prior meeting.
prior?
just the
No,
prior meeting.
Just the prior, okay, good, thank you. I couldn't remember
No,
what the
just the
verbiage was.
preceding meeting.
Okay,
No farther than that.
okay.
Have you had many folks coming to your meetings, doing public comment? Pretty
No.
quiet.
Not recently.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, you've been doing public comments, so the law, there's these little bit of minor changes, but it's not a whole new process for you guys. So,
Correct.
yeah,
The next page, page 13, where we say only the following individuals will be permitted to speak. I don't know the answer to this. I don't know if this is allowable under the law that was passed, that we can limit who can speak. So that may need to be struck or researched.
which paragraph was that in again? Chris?
Where this is where it says, up a little bit, Dr. Schatz. There you go, right there. Only the following individuals in those 5 different categories. I don't know the answer to this, but we might want to check that out to just make sure it complies with that law.
Okay. All right.
Let's see. Okay, so the next area, GC5, which is on my page 27.
Before we get there, can I stop at committees real quick?
Yep.
Okay, so here's the committee structure. So if you approve these policies, then the committees would become these two. Oh, I'm sorry. Page 18 on my document.
17 for us? Okay, yes,
Okay.
got it.
Yeah, I've been going in and doing some things here, so it might switch on you. But anyways, when you look at you see this right here, governance committee. The purpose, number one, assist the president and superintendent in planning upcoming school board agendas. So that becomes a function of that committee. So it's not just the president and the superintendent, but those appointed to the governance committee. That's where, you kind of review and all take a look. If other board members had suggested agenda items of any kind that would come to the governance committee, all of that gets considered. So then, agendas that are created not exclusively by just a couple of people. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So-
Do I?
You can go first.
No, you, by all means.
So does that mean that it's different than the rotating board member?
So
for
that's,
agenda setting, or is it just the governance committee members?
yeah. And so that may be a conversation you have about the rotating member and whether you continue to do that. And whether it's a duty that is given to the governance committee, because the governance committee would be a representation of the board, as you see down here, the president and two other board members. And maybe that if you're going to do rotating board member, I don't know if you put that in here, but that's something you guys will have to decide, I guess.
I would say strike or adjust the prior language and instead the governance committee seems to me to be the one assisting in that. So then change your membership if the board wants to be the president, vice president, and one other board member, or you certainly can stick with president and two other board members. But if you want, I feel both leadership positions, I guess, should be part of that agenda setting process. So president, vice president, and one other board member would be something I'd throw out there for consideration.
Other people have thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we did talk about this last time and we probably, if I remember right, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about this.
Yeah.
Because we wanted, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but as my memory is serving me, we wanted to keep things the way that they are in regards to that agenda setting piece. So that way, every board member would have an opportunity to serve with setting that agenda through that rotation process. Versus it being assigned to a specific committee and only the committee.
Yeah, from my perspective, I would remove item 1 from the governance committee and keep the agenda setting committee separate.
Correct.
Chris?
I would be fine with that.
It's a great, from my perspective, it's a great opportunity to keep other board members that may not be a part of that regularly, or if their committees aren't regular. It just kind of keeps them involved and it rotates and everybody gets to see what's going on in the background,
Correct.
kind of from my perspective. So I would remove that out.
Yep.
Is that a meeting that you guys set up then prior to the
Yeah.
board meeting to set the agenda?
Yes,
It's usually the Thursday before the board meeting.
Okay.
And it's been very well received by all board members. So, and yeah, I remember us talking about this at length and us not wanting that included in this specific committee.
Well, then up here, well, then we should make sure that that's mentioned up earlier in the policies in the GC up top about the agenda. Because I don't
Yes.
know if it's mentioned up there, so that the Thursday before the president, vice president, and a rotating board member, do I have that correct? And then the superintendent, I'm assuming is part of that too?
Correct.
And so I just made a note here on my pad. I'll go up and I'll find that and I'll include that in there. And then we should just take it out of here and that wouldn't be part of the governance committee. Do I have that?
Yeah.
Okay,
At the bottom of page 10, Dr. Schatz, where that's at.
is it? Okay, I'll go back and take a look at that. Okay, sounds good. All right, Chris, which was the next one for you?
Let me get back to it. It was GC5, I believe, page 27.
Okay, let's go there.
I would like to go through all the committees too, just to make sure that we've got everything the way that we had wanted it, and nothing against you, Dr. Schatz, please don't think that this is an over criticism, it's just that we had one that was not quite where we wanted it, so I'd like to just review them quickly.
Well, no, yeah, that's perfectly fine. These are your policies. Yeah, don't worry about me. I want to make sure you get it right for you. And again, it was October the last time we met, so that's a long time ago. It's hard to remember all of it. So Chris, on this one here, we'll go through Chris's and then we'll go back up, Heather, okay?
Perfect.
Yeah, so Chris, what did you have?
Not necessarily an edit, but I was curious on your interpretation and Corey and Heather's interpretation of this. Item 2, it says a member of the board shall not also be an employee of the district.
Yeah.
Is that interpreted also to include folks that the district would contract with? So they're not necessarily receiving their paycheck from Williston Basin School District number 7, but through the third party services, they really are performing services for the district, and I'm referencing transportation in particular.
Yeah, what do you guys think?
Well,
I think it's a massive conflict.
yeah,
There's a lot of things when it comes to contracts that you could be involved in. So if you were involved, you really have to state your conflict and you'd really have to remove yourself from a lot of aspects of what we do. So you'd have to, for instance, an individual sitting in the room, but we'll talk about it. We have an individual who runs our transportation for the district. And if they were to be elected to the board, they would be having a lot more personal meetings when it comes to other things. And so they could be stepping kind of on your board duties as well as your job duties. And it could be difficult.
Do you want a statement in there about that? I like how you said that, Chris. Third party / contracted services, something like that, to give it some context, or what do you think?
Well, it's a very real world situation that the future board is potentially going to be confronted with, and I'm not necessarily sure that said individual that is running for the board seat is necessarily aware of this provision. It already exists in existing policy, I believe.
Yes.
Mr. Barsh, when he ran, he had the very question as well, because he was an employee of the district as a assistant basketball coach at the time, and he went in knowing that he may have to relinquish that employment opportunity as an assistant basketball coach. This specific situation is a little more gray, I guess, in the fact that it's not direct employment through the district, where the district's providing, the check directly, but really they are an employee of the district through third-party services. So I just bring it up so everybody's aware of it. It certainly may be something that ultimately, I guess, has to be interpreted and addressed by the future board. I don't think there needs to be any edits unless Corey and Heather feel that we should add more clarity if we think that the interpretation does include third-party contractors.
Well, having a conflict of interest statement on file and signed could potentially alleviate some of that concern. I know that I have a conflict of interest because I'm an advocate. However, there is absolutely no money exchanging hands in any way, shape, or form, either by first, second, or third party, in my case. But having that conflict of interest on file and then having something about the recusal process and making sure that that is known and observed could potentially alleviate any issue for any future board members.
Agreed. I think this section in particular is strictly saying that if you're going to be a member of the board, you cannot be an employee of the district. A signed, conflict of interest statement is not waiving that. You can't be a teacher in the district and serve on the school board. You can't be a coach and serve on the school board. I guess the question that we need to answer is, do we need clarifying language in there related to third-party contracted services? If that's the intent of this language.
It's a valid point.
I think it's completely different if, we're contracting electrical services and, you work for Triangle Electric and you're coming in to repair electric problems within the district compared to transportation. Transportation is definitely a unique third-party contract.
Okay.
How about family members who work in the district? Do you guys, I'm sure you have that occurring, do you not?
Yes, we do. Mr. Wallstead's wife works for the district.
And so when it comes to negotiations, that would be a conflict of interest for a board member if their wife or their daughter or son or whoever related to them was a teacher in the district. Would they not have to state that conflict?
Correct.
They recuse themselves from voting.
Yep.
You go, okay, I was just checking on that one. Yeah, because that's a pretty common thing. You certainly could have this statement in there just to give it some context and just, because then it, because it says or related to a third party / contracted services.
I'm going to defer to Heather and Corey on this. I mean, they're the ones that are ultimately potentially going to be dealing with this, but I think it definitely creates a major problem in my opinion. If I was on the board moving forward, I think it's a major problem.
So what do you guys think, Corey and Heather? Should we leave that in there then and put something like that in there?
I completely understand exactly where you're coming from, Chris. I get it. It could create issues moving forward. However, if we put some safeguards in place that could offer protections to a board member and the board as a whole. But do we want to jump through those hoops? I mean, a conflict of interest would help. I really am curious what you have to say. I keep repeating myself, Cory.
I think the issue that you run into is you're looking at a high dollar amount that is traded between this third party. And so I think that makes it a little bit different. This is a tough one, because do I believe that you could have the role of a board member and also you're kind of getting millions of dollars from the district, and when it comes to your company and you're representing a whole region? I think this has to go to the board, the whole board.
Yeah, I think so too, because I don't want to play devil's advocate with it, because that could.
I think it's a
create-
massive conflict for the position
Yeah.
that it could be related to.
I mean, because
It's a massive conflict.
yeah, because if we had in the future, if we had a person who worked for, say, J.E. Dunn, as an example, wanting to run for the board.
Yeah, we would have to decline giving J.E. Dunn probably the majority of work, because that would be huge.
Yeah, so we can't legally under century code, we can't bar someone from running.
No.
And so that's why, that's where I'm kind of divided on this particular one is how do we go about putting a safeguard in place to protect an individual?
But the thing is, you're not barring them from running. You're making it clear and concise that if you run for this and you're elected to this, your option is give up your role in a third party company that's receiving millions of dollars. This is not unusual to have things
No,
like this
I
in
agree.
policy. So from my perspective, I would put it in.
And I'm on the fence on that part because I don't like the idea of forcing an individual to quit a job / career because they want to serve on their school board. I'm really divided on that one.
It's a tough one.
Can I
And issues that could occur.
throw in a suggestion? Let's take and include this here and then run it by your legal, whoever your district attorney is, and see what they would
Good.
suggest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely bow to whatever Vogel has to say about this. If there is a legal safeguard that can be placed in, and if they come back and say, absolutely not, you can't, I would
So if
out that.
if I played the game of if I were the superintendent and this landed on my desk and my board was asking me this, that's what I would recommend is let's run it by legal, see what they say. And then if there's some language that they would suggest, we go back to this number 2 and include that language. So that we know that we're not getting ourselves into a bind because we had the wrong language. Does that make sense to you folks?
It does, and we have contracts with other agencies,
Sure.
and look at the ARC, for example. A recreation center, we have contracts with them, yet their district supervisor is on our board.
Well, let's run it by, and in your district, when you have a legal review of something like this, is that something that your superintendent initiates, or how have you guys done that? So would Jason follow up on that, Taylor and Jason?
We're sending an email to Chris Ann right now
Yeah.
and she normally gets back to us in a day or two, so.
Yeah, with Cory being the VP, you can definitely be that connector. Are you comfortable with that? Getting in touch with Chris Ann?
No, superintendent will.
Oh, okay.
Taylor's sharing an email right now, so I'll share it
All
with
right.
you guys once I get it.
Perfect,
Yeah,
okay.
So Jason, would you take that paragraph that's there, that number 2,
Yeah.
and give that language directly to Chris Ann and then say, ask what their interpretation is and should there be different language here? And so that when they come back, we can just pop that language in. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Yep.
Okay,
And whether it applies or it doesn't apply, I think putting some sort of clarification in here that this applies to third-party contracted services or doesn't, would be helpful for future people looking at this.
yeah.
agree.
And that's what I would ask my legal person is that what language? Tell me the language we need so that we don't get ourselves into a bind legally. So, okay, that was good. Good conversation. Good job. What else, Chris, do you have?
Page 34 on the board superintendent relationship.
Oh, there. Wake my computer up here. Yeah, there we go.
So should, where you have the kind of the summary, Dr. Schatz, yep, right there. BSR1, should it be single point of contact or should it be single point of connection? There's conflicting
Oh, boy.
wording, I guess. It
Oh,
says connection there.
It should be contact.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Good catch. Yeah, I don't know where connection came from. I have too many spell checks on my computer. Sometimes it throws a word in and I don't even know it. Okay.
Okay. Page 40.
Okay. There we are. We're right about here.
Yeah, so yeah, 7 H, I, and J. So does H, I, and J
You see.
accurately, it'd be under number 7
Yep.
related to the evaluation. Does the way H, I, and J reads encompass the proposed superintendent evaluation content? Is my question.
I don't think that this was changed not knowing what you guys were gonna do.
Okay.
This is probably your original language, because you remember these were, I took your original policies and put them in there, so I'm thinking my best memory is that. And so, because when we worked on this in October, it was shortly after that Dr. Fadley was asking for that performance review process, and then that's when I put that together. So we hadn't talked about that, Chris, I guess, in here.
So
You know?
if the board were to adopt the proposed forms that you provided with the evaluation, we would need to then maybe change this content.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it would include also goals and competence.
Goals.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Page 44, just a typographical item.
Okay.
Should just be compliant on that first checkbox.
Yeah. Got it.
And okay, page 51 on the budget, number 8.
If you want. There. It's there. Okay. Right here.
Page 51.
Whoops. Number 8,
Okay,
right there.
right there. Questioning whether we should adjust this language or not. I mean, at this point in time, there's no way that Dr. Germanson could comply with the language as it exists. I mean, we're at about an 8% carryover balance right now. I know the policy right now says 15 to 20, but there's just no way we're gonna be increasing to at least a 15% carryover balance in the next budget cycle.
Do you think we should lower it to maybe 10? Or have a ratio of 10 to 12?
Even at 10, I don't think we get there. I mean, Mike was projecting us to get to, I think, about 9 something in year
Yeah.
2. So
Okay.
maybe adding some language here, unless an exception is approved by the school board, something along those lines. You guys will have to decide if you want to keep the 15 to 20 in policy. I think that's probably high. 10 to 15 would probably be a better target now, but
Number, yeah. We gotta get there first.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's the problem. It's getting there and how do we get there?
And how long do we hold?
Maybe you just want to put anticipated end fund balance. Prior years, well, yeah, prior years. You could put something like 5% and just go really low. But I mean, and then I like what you said, Chris, too. Maybe put this exception statement in here too, unless, you know, through an exception by the board. Something like that, but you could just take this out too, considering your current budget situation and not even have it in there. I mean, because it sounds to me, you know, in many other districts, they're running 25-30%. I mean, and so it's basically saying you're not going to give us a budget that gets us broke, but you're kind of broke. So do you just take it out for now, or what do you guys think?
I don't wanna remove it. I would rather do what you're suggesting is having an exception put in there, but definitely change that percentage.
Maybe to 5%, maybe?
What, Corey?
I would reference the policy that sets what the board's projected is. So if we drop it to 10 to 15% is what we want, then it shouldn't go lower than the 10, but keep the unless an exception. So I think it should be a policy reference to that we have set, and then it can just reflect that. So you just reference the number for the policy and say,
Yeah,
the budget will be approved by the board. So at that point, I just would reference the policy. I wouldn't take it out.
Should I put that 10 to 15% in here then, like that?
I would say so. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, we gotta bring that policy back for approval to the board to lower it anyway.
Exactly, yes,
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't think it's an issue.
Okay.
I think we can fix it and just reference the policy.
yeah, put a header or a sub note on it. For the policy number.
Does that make sense, Chris?
yes, I don't remember what policy it is offhand.
Yeah. I'll just put a highlight there and we'll find that.
Okay.
Okay, good. Anything else, Chris?
Last page, 60.
Okay.
I just have a question and then one grammatical item. So where it's green and struck out, is the intent there that much of this would be fleshed out in the long-term facilities plan rather than listing it in here?
Yeah, and I left this in on purpose because this is kind of where we ended before we had kind of discussed that long range facilities. And that's what I was thinking is this kind of constrains you a little bit, puts restrictions on you. So what I was thinking here is just develop and execute a facility plan that establishes priorities for construction, renovation, and maintenance projects, period. And then the report itself reflects what all that is. And so we don't have these, just this list. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yes,
Makes sense.
So I'm gonna cut that now. That one's been sitting in there for a long time, so I was hoping we would hit that today. So that's good. Okay, so we got that. All right. Some of the formatting on my document here too, I'm gonna have Taylor go through, but you know, because originally I took the document you guys had, which was, I think, if I had it right, Taylor, from Aspen, and the formatting on that and trying to get the formatting in here. So we still have to do some of that. There's a little bit of formatting here that has to go on.
The last
Anything
one I
else, Chris?
had Dr. Schatz was number 7 there.
Yep.
I think where it says unreasonably, comma, where we've got the comma, I think it's supposed to be unreasonably deny, and then
Oh.
everything else looks fine.
Yeah, that might have been. The use of district, okay. Got that. Yeah, see that there's a Grammarly thing pulling out the word deny. Okay, so good. Anything else, Chris? That was all the way through?
That's
Okay.
it on that one. I have a few on the evaluation document when we get to that, but good on this one.
Okay. Corey, Heather, are you okay with what we've just gone through here? You want to go back to committees, Heather?
Yeah, just to, I don't have anything specific. I just wanna to glance through them really quick.
Okay, so here we are, committee structure. There's 3 governance planning negotiations. So governance committee and then the purpose. Here it is. So I'll just let you read that if you can see it.
What page are you on?
This would be page 18 on mine, probably, what was it, 17 on yours, maybe?
Okay, very good. Thank you. Sorry about that.
From, so take a look, see what you think.
Yep.
I'm good with everything on the governance.
Okay,
The
Or-
the only change I would, maybe the membership, we could just go back to 2 other board members if we're reverting back to just following the current process. We're not gonna have the governance committee tasked with the agenda settings.
okay.
Yep.
Corey, anything from you on this one?
Nope.
Heather, after you read it, does it make sense?
Oh, yeah, it does.
Okay, so that would be your governance. And then here's planning. And it may not, number 7 may not apply now if you're going to use your current process of agenda setting, because it wouldn't be the governance committee.
Correct.
Yep.
So I should take that out, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And it would just be working with
Just the business manager, yeah.
yeah. Working with the business manager to address appropriate planning issues at regular school board meetings, yeah. Any thoughts on this one? Are we pretty okay?
I'm good.
Okay. Corey, good?
I'm good.
Yeah. So you can see this, all the planning stuff right here. That's where you do a lot of your conversations with that. And then negotiations is here.
I'm fine with negotiations.
Okay, Corey?
I'm fine with negotiations.
Okay. And so you would have three standing committees. Now, that doesn't mean that there couldn't be a short-term committee for some kind of task force or something special that came up that was appointed by the board. But this here would be your standing committees. And then you would look at your annual work plan. And these committee meetings occur prior to your monthly board meetings, so that if there's anything that's coming out of these committees that needs to be on agendas, that those things are appropriately on agenda for the school board meeting. Make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're pretty darn close here. I mean, there's been a pretty good review of all these policies that you've had. I'm going to do one of the most important things I do after a session like this is I'm going to hit save on this. So I don't have to call Chris and say, okay, what was that again? All right, so I'm going to hit save. And then at this point with these governance policies, what I'd like to do is Taylor, I want to set up a time for you and I to have a conversation about them and talk about next steps with as far as formatting. And then what does that mean about the monitoring reports? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll set some time up to do that. Okay. So no further questions on governance. I think we're pretty good there. I'm going to drop that one. And then Chris, you wanted to go to performance review. So let me find where I have that.
Where is it?
So next one.
Okay, which one? Chris, I had the two, the spring and the fall. Was that a particular one? You're muted right now, Chris, so I can't hear you. Here.
Either one, Dr. Schatz will work. My question applies to
Okay, here we are.
both of them.
Okay.
So we had talked, I think, initially on this, and this maybe is more procedurally, or the question for Corey and Heather is if we want to include specific language in here that might assist board members as they're filling it out. But I've always been of the opinion, if you're going to rate any employee other than, in this case, the consistently meets expectations is kind of the 3 if we're using a 5 scale. There should be specific examples or comments if you're going to rate the employee anything but that middle one. Otherwise, I've just seen too much historically that you have some board members that don't take this process as seriously as they should, and they just put a 5 across the board. Or conversely, you've got, personality conflicts maybe between the superintendent and an individual board member, and they're just giving them negative remarks all across the board with no examples listed. So I really feel strongly that that should be a requirement, whether that's just procedurally addressed by the board president, or I guess the governance committee in this case would be the one compiling it. But I think it's really important that, that validation behind the rating is provided, good or bad.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, but how do we police it? I mean, the board chair is gonna have to be chasing down board members to get examples. Is there a way to force it so you can't move on?
Yeah, this is a simple doc. I mean, we could, Taylor, that's another thing we could do is work on how would we make this into something that's user friendly for you guys. This is just a format that I had to give you an example. So yeah, whatever you guys decide. And you could decide to just take out these 2 top categories and just have 3, you don't have to have 5. Yeah,
Yeah, I think, I don't think the five's an issue necessarily, but I do think that, board members need to be required in the document to cite instances. I mean, it's very simple. Right now, if I send out an email, from something I've heard in the community, something I've seen, I can send it right to the superintendent. He responds. It's very easy for me to put in there, hey, he's dealing with situations. Anytime I bring something to him, I receive a timely response. And that's pretty simple for a board member to come up with. So it's not, we're gonna have the report. So I think if they're going to try and go either way, not take it serious, which can put the district in a adverse situation by them not being honest, or vice versa, intentionally trying to derail a superintendent. You need to give me examples of why he's unacceptable or she's unacceptable. You can't just say unacceptable. So I think we have to have a requirement in there that as they fill it out, they have to respond.
yeah. So there's two things here I want you to think of. Number one is this here would be the final report. Compiling this report, you could develop like a survey instrument, a survey monkey or whatever you guys use that board members would fill out, but in that they would have to provide examples. And then as that's collated together through the board president, this is the final document. And then you have to decide at what level do the board comments go. I mean, in other words, verbatim, the way they were stated, or if there's some real negativity that goes on, does the board president reach out to that board member and say, I need more clarity in order to appropriately fill this out? That's something you guys will have to think about. So, I mean, you don't have to answer that today, but I mean, that's something to think about. How do you deal with the board comments piece? Because here they are available to them.
Well,
And then in the instructions to fill this out, there's some detailed instructions that say, if there are negative perceptions or performance review comments, that there needs to be, examples of what that is or something like that,
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I agree, we need to discuss it, but I don't like the idea of giving anyone the opportunity to whitewash any board member's comments. Asking for clarity is one thing, but changing them is not appropriate,
Right.
good or bad. I mean, it doesn't matter.
But we've always, when we do the evaluation and it comes down to the final vote, it always is up to the board on if they perceive that there's an issue between superintendent and a board member for us to remove comments. There is that opportunity for the board to make a decision to remove those. So I think we do need to make sure that there is a piece in there where we're ensuring that they're professionally filling it out, and that's it.
Yeah.
As long as if they're trying to harm the superintendent just because, we just need to be able to know that they're giving real examples. Because the relationship with the superintendent can be one way with 3 board members and another way with another one, so.
So here's something to think about. I mean, you're going to approve your governance policies. So starting in July, your new board, whoever's on the governance committee, this would be an agenda item for them, is to take a look at the performance review document, have a conversation, and where are you guys going to land on this, and then get it to the full board to approve so that it's ready to go for that first fall eval.
Yeah.
But at least you have a template to start with here. And I think that would be a suggestion I would have.
I think that's a good approach. I mean, it's ultimately the new board that's going to be evaluating the superintendent, so they should have some input on it rather than, somebody like myself voting in June to say, here's the tool we're going to use.
Well, in one other thing too that I'm suggesting to Jason and is that there's a orientation process for your new board members in July before they actually sit at the table in their first meeting. And I think you received that document. I had worked on one with Dr. Fadley that is a pretty complete orientation for new board members, and this would be one of those items, that there's a performance review process, and here are the main tenets of it. Yeah, and so I think that's really important too. These are critical things. How people fill out these types of things are very critical. I mean, it's your superintendent's position. I mean, you guys know very well just how intense that can get. So, so anything else with this particular document though, Chris, other than that, the rating system, everything else looked okay to you?
It looks okay to me. I just have one last question on the goals piece. Who's typically determining that? Is the superintendent providing 4 goals? Is the school board? Is it a combination of the two?
Yeah, this would be the superintendent sets goals for themselves. So this would be their professional goals. Would have a discussion with the board president, and then ultimately that's what they would do. And then the board would be aware of what those goals are and have an opportunity to rate, to go in and, whether they feel they're accomplishing them or not. If the board has things that they want the superintendent to work on, that would be in the summative, in the second eval of the year. Superintendent, these are things that the board wants to. I, as a board president, would want to see those in your goals for the next year. So I mean, that's where that's my thinking on it, Chris. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. But this gives your superintendent an opportunity to share with the board. Here are things that I feel I would like to identify as goals for my own professional growth and development.
So would you put that into the same category as a self-evaluation?
Of the superintendent?
Correct.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you and I have talked about that before. I'm a very strong believer in self-evaluations. I like it when someone in leadership is encouraged to look at themselves in the mirror and evaluate themselves.
So here's
That can be very valuable.
Yeah, and so and I agree. In a perfect world, it would. But here's what I would tell you on a self-eval. This is something through my career in my own self. I would never give myself any less rating if I did my own self-eval than consistently meets expectations.
Understood.
I just wouldn't, because I wouldn't set myself up for the failure for somebody to pull in on, well, I think I'm unacceptable in this area, or I'm only partially meeting this. I wouldn't go there myself. So I think self-evals can be manipulated too. I mean, both ways. And so I don't know. That's another conversation for your governance committee and Jason too. I don't think these conversations should be in isolation. You have a new superintendent, and it's going to be really important for Jason to get off to a good start. And he should be part of the conversation about, and so Heather, if you guys feel that it's important that Jason do a self-eval, well then, hey, go for it. I think it's great. But then you're all agreeing on it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that kind of healthy discussion builds trust also between the board and your superintendent. And so, in other words, nobody's guessing anymore about how we're going to evaluate and how we're going to do things. It's all straightforward.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I think Corey and Heather, then the idea here moving forward, Jason also, is that your new board, when they get seated, that governance committee, this might be one to tackle, but you have something to start to work with anyways. And you may come back and knock off a couple of these categories, whatever you want to do, or even come up with something a little bit different. I mean, this is my best thinking on what I think aligns best with the work that you're asking the superintendent to do, and your operational expectations and your results policies. Okay, I'm going to drop this one if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, anything else that the group wants to address today or discuss? Are we feeling pretty good about where we're at and as we move forward?
I thought the new, go
Were
ahead,
we gonna
Heather.
talk, thank you, were we gonna talk about new board orientation paperwork?
I guess we could. I know that was sent out to you, and what that was just kind of a an agenda that was created as a starting point, never got anywhere with, you know, beyond what I had provided. But let me see here.
And are they still doing new board members in October in Bismarck during the conference?
Yeah, still a lot.
But are they offering a virtual option? Cause I know that they were for a while and then they, I heard that they stopped.
I don't know that they are.
Okay, I think that was just for COVID.
So let me share with you, if I could, real quick, just my
Yeah.
thinking on this is that the School Board Association orientation for board members, I think, is different in my mind than what you do in your school district.
That is correct.
So you get a new board member, the board president or past president or vice president, however it's set up going into that new structure, before the new board is seated, because they've been elected, but there's a short period of time before they're actually seated, is you bring them in and the superintendent and the board president that is still seated conducts the orientation along with a lot of other people. So, and it's an orientation where you're asking for 4 to 6 hours of your new board member. It is not a short 1 hour get together, here's some stuff and go home. It's a very detailed, and if you're going to have these governance policies and they're really going to get, you know, really be used as they govern your work, a big part of your orientation falls in this overview of governance policies and purpose. And that then would include the superintendent's performance evaluation, the annual work calendar, all those things. How do you communicate? What about citizen engagement? What's the protocol? What about open meetings and open records? And it may be that it's not just the president and the superintendent, but at certain times you bring in different people who would be doing the briefing with the new board member. And so throughout that orientation, it's like Michael would come in on the budget, for example, right? So I can tell you, in my experience, when I was still in the role, it was a long day, but the orientation was a full day.
Yeah.
The new board members, and we had our department people come in, we had, you know, and then what I suggested to Jason in this for your first run is to have maybe a morning session with the new board members, but then in the afternoon, go spend some time out in your facilities and do a tour of your whole school district.
Let's get on some roofs.
Or a bus.
What's that? What's
Go
that?
on some roofs or get in a bus.
Yeah, whatever it might be. But I mean, you know, get out and actually see what it is now that you're stepping into, right, as a board member. And so I don't know. However, but I think, you know, a very detailed, extensive orientation sets a new board member up for when they go to their first meeting, they at least have a clue of what's happening, to be
Yeah.
honest, you know.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I wish that existed in 2016 when I first joined the board.
Yeah. So here's what I tell you: highly functioning boards, good relationships with superintendents, all those things, right? All those things we want to have. A really good board that functions well together, good relationship with the superintendent's good relationship with the board. This is the first piece to it, a good orientation of a new board member. And so, and you guys are at that point now, you know, all the other things are the past. There's nothing you can do about the past anymore. You're moving forward. You're going to have a lot of new board members, some new leadership. What a great opportunity for you guys to just really get off on a good start here. and the timing's perfect, right? And so that's why I'm really excited for you guys. I think the timing right now is about as perfect as I've seen it there. And I think you have a really good opportunity ahead of you. Okay? Is there any, go ahead.
I thought this was a very encompassing list. It looks good to me. My only suggestion would be to potentially provide it to Mrs. Kilgore and Mr. Barsh, being the two new members to the board, and see if there's something that they, wish they would have had that's not on the list that we're maybe overlooking. So,
Yeah.
Good idea.
And again, this was just kind of a outline. If your governance policies are approved and your strategic plan, you want to go through and look, and there may be some other policies that you really want to highlight. All those things, but that's a great suggestion, Chris, too. And then Jason, working with Taylor and with your current board president, can finalize that and then set that up. Be great.
Awesome.
Do you have
Okay.
enough on your list, Taylor, yet?
No, just a few more things.
sure
Sorry, Taylor.
Dr. Germanson does not bring them to any wrestling matches, Taylor, on the tour.
No.
I hope those mats will be gone before too long.
They will be gone Monday. So
There we go.
Okay, so for today's meeting then, are we all feeling pretty good about where we're at? A lot of good things here.
Yeah, I think we're there. Look what we've accomplished in the last year. A
Yeah,
lot has occurred and we've made a lot of headway, and we're gonna go into the next school year with a highly prepared board that won't have to do all the legwork that's had to occur. A lot less meetings for the new board members.
Yeah.
More
yeah.
committee,
Yeah, a lot less meetings.
Yeah.
less meeting, more committee.
Right, and implement what you have, right? Monitor,
Yep.
do all those things. So, okay, that's what I had for you today. Jason, we're gonna get you out of here so you can go. What are they naming it after? Who? The street.
After the school, well, actually, there's two brothers, Wesley and Kermit. That's what our airport was named for like 50 years, from 1947 to 2019 was Slolan. There's two brothers that graduated from Williston. And they went off to the war. One went to the Pacific Theater, one went to the European Theater, and they both died. And so that's where Slolan, it used to be Slolan International Airport. Now it's Slolan Elementary because it's on the Slolan Old International Airport property. And so the
Yep.
city's naming it Slolan Drive. So
Sounds good to me. What's the temp like in Williston today?
55 and cloudy.
Yeah, it's 92 here.
We
We've
had that yesterday.
Yeah, we've had
100% humidity.
no, we've had 4 90-degree days in a row now, or 3, I think it is. Yeah, it's brutal for me. Okay, well, good luck with that, Jason. And then
Yep.
Taylor, yeah, I'm gonna reach out to you outside of this meeting. The one thing that you sent me about the strategic plan, a small edit, and
Yes.
can we maybe I'm thinking tomorrow just touch base.
Yes, I think that would be good because I'm gone next week. So,
Are you around tomorrow?
yep.
Okay, when this meeting's done, I'll look at my calendar. I'll send you a couple options on my calendar of time. And then we'll see if we can hook up and then we can move forward with some formatting and things with these things and whatever we gotta do. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, it's really good to see you guys again. And Chris, I don't know if I come out there, if you're gonna be at that last board meeting if I come to that one, so I'll see you then. So yeah, okay. All right. And then Corey and Heather, we'll be in touch and we'll be working together here on this and getting this done, huh?
Yep,
Sounds good.
thank you.
All right, guys. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks
a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
All right.
So where are you going in June?
Vacation.
Fun.